Okay. My name is Gijs. I'm a PhD candidate at the TU Delft, and I'm at the Faculty of Industrial Design Engineering. And I'll be presenting a little bit different perspective on this kind of local energy systems, although I think it follows quite well on the last presentation. So my title of my talk is The Transformative Power for Human-Centered Local Energy Systems. And I'm not talking here about the kind of power, like power systems or power grids that we usually talk about, but this is more about a type of political power. Pun not really intended, but okay. Yeah, so it's about political power, so that means it's about decision-making capabilities, it's about who gets to act, who gets to be involved in these kind of systems. Yeah, I'm presenting our research in a project that we are doing in Amsterdam South-East, and I'm using an approach called Design Anthropology, which I will also go into. So taking a design perspective, so the effective industrial design, this means we're looking at the end user. So we're taking a user perspective to these kinds of systems, and a product perspective. So how do people interact with these systems? What possibilities does it offer them? Which people get to interact with them and which do not? And yeah, when I say local smart energy systems, it's really about this large umbrella of things we're talking about, from peer-to-peer trading to certain flexible tariffs by DSOs and all these kind of things, and energy communities, of course. Then I will mention my methodology, which is Design Anthropology, and I will talk a bit about the project I'm in, which is the Local Inclusive Future Energy Project, which is trying to do two things, namely grid congestion mitigation and inclusion. And finally, I will talk about a kind of experiment we're doing in creating a new kind of local institution to deal with a lot of these kind of practical problems related to data and the distribution of value and all of that. So, position of end users in local smart energy systems. So, there's a lot of talk about prosumers and about communities, who are we actually talking about when we use these terms is a question that I would like to ask. So when we're talking about energy communities and peer-to-peer trading, who gets to participate in these kind of things? What are the kind of constraints or kind of the side conditions to be able to benefit from these systems? And then the second question here is, how can these kind of systems be designed to accommodate social and cultural practices and habits of people? So we talk about disruptive technologies and disruptive businesses, but those also have certain side effects that may be harmful. So we've seen with some of the other disruptive technologies, and how can we take those into account? And then finally, how does these systems shift the roles of actors and power relations? So similar to this ecosystem way of thinking, what are the actors involved and what are the relationships between them? So what is my approach? So design, taking a product end user perspective, and it's very experimental, doing interventions to kind of maybe do games or doing co-creation sessions to get insight into user preferences. But also anthropology, and classically this is more of an observatory kind of exercise, but this is very practical, kind of going into an environment, talking to people, doing interviews, observing people, and combining this with design to kind of create experimental solutions or transformative kind of innovations in a very kind of practical sense. But always focusing on the human aspect of it, so not necessarily on the business or environmental or the technological, but really the kind of human dimension of all of this. So this is the project I'm in. This is a project in Amsterdam South-East, and it has quite interdisciplinary collaboration. The DSO is in there, and the Amsterdam Arena, which is a football stadium, and it has a large 4 megawatt storage battery in the basement. And there are also a smart energy technology company and other academic institutions that are working on the kind of power grid side of it. And the goal is to make a smart energy platform that uses algorithms to enable flexible sharing of assets. So the arena has the battery, but then there's the ING bank that has also an energy storage system, and there are several other actors in the area that can participate in this. But then the second goal is to see how local neighborhoods, people in the local neighborhood of Vents and Polder, can benefit from this. So it's a two-pronged approach. So how can we reduce grid congestion, but how can we provide access to people in local residents in the area? And this brings up certain challenges because, well, this is the area where it is in Amsterdam, and yeah, this is a map that shows energy poverty in Amsterdam, and this neighborhood of Vents and Polder, and you see there in the green, it's some of the highest in the whole region. So there's a lot of energy poverty here. We're not talking about energy communities that are, you know, very already rich or proactive, or they have, you know, in these kind of rural, tight-knit communities. This is a very different kind of area, and the challenges are fundamentally different, where we're looking at the participation of citizens, for example, and the distribution of benefits. So, yeah, we really have these two worlds coming together, but there's quite inequalities. So on the one hand, we are looking at this flexible sharing of assets, and we have the large, kind of powerful parties here, the Amsterdam Arena with the battery, ING Bank, and there are some others there who are really engaging in this very collaborative, but facilitated by a technological platform to pool these assets. And there's quite some savings can be made by that, since they can trade collectively on the energy markets. But then on the other hand, there is the residents in the Vents and Polder neighborhoods, and there are there's no PV there is certainly no energy storage, very few electric vehicles, apartment blocks are very poorly insulated, and it's also a neighborhood with quite some socioeconomic challenges, and it's been kind of designated as a development neighborhood by the municipality because of poverty and crime rates and stuff like that. And there's not a large trust in these kind of institutional projects and in energy transition, and all of this is very far away for people from this area because of past experiences that they've had and because they simply have other things to worry about. So this is the challenge we're dealing with, is how can we do this asset sharing and to mitigate grid congestion, which will be beneficial for the DSO, but also for the parties participating in that in terms of economic benefits. But how can we provide this also to the people in this neighborhood? Because, well, we're talking about public infrastructure, subsidized projects, and energy poverty with the current crisis. I'm sure everyone knows this is something we need to look at. So this is what kind of the experimental design solution that we are now looking at, and that I want to look at in my PhD research. So there is this technological platform that will enable asset sharing, but now we are thinking of kind of a social counterpart to that, the live social platform is what we're calling it. And this is kind of an institution, that's what we're thinking about, an organization maybe, but we're not thinking about it as a business, because it's also about things that go beyond a business, the things that you cannot monetize, like human values, social values. And that is what this institution may govern, is the distribution and generation of economic value, social value, and informational value about data and things like that. So what does this mean and how do they do that? Well, we're still very early in this process, so this is very kind of early work in progress idea. So first of all, we're looking at setting up an energy cooperative that will connect these large asset owners with, let's say, local homeowners associations in this neighborhood, where to kind of share this revenue from this trading platform. And this revenue can then be used to kind of reduce energy poverty or fund local projects in the community related to energy education, for example, or even better, to invest in assets locally to ensure that these apartments get solar panels, for example. But then the question is, who gets to cooperate in this decision making, or participate? So who gets to decide these things? How is the community given a voice? And all these are research questions. The second part of it is that this institution can function as kind of a co-creative space, since there is a lot of data that is required, both from from our side, when we are doing social research, we want to interview people, we want to do co-creation sessions with people, but this is sometimes difficult. So if we bring it under the umbrella of this kind of platform, then we can kind of collaborate closely with local experts to get people to help us. And we can also set up procedures maybe for people to provide energy data to these technological systems so they can make better algorithms or get insight into this grid congestion issue. Yeah, and then we will try to figure out a way to fairly compensate people for their participation in this, because, yeah, as we've already talked about, there's problems with data extraction where data is taken and abused for business purposes, but people are not really compensated for it. Then the third aspect is looking at the social value. So can these kind of systems really contribute, for example, to social cohesion? If you set up an energy donation mechanism locally between these more powerful actors and the neighborhoods, maybe we're looking at ways for people to exchange energy non-monetarily for social community values, for example. Maybe there's also an idea of setting up a project to educate people as solar photovoltaic mechanics and to fund this as part of this platform. So these are all kind of experiments. We're taking a very kind of pragmatic approach and just see what works and what comes out of it. So some preliminary takeaways. So even if we decentralize the infrastructure, it does not mean that we fully decentralize politically. There are still power relations, new power relations, perhaps storage, battery energy storage owners become more powerful in this configuration. And proactive participation of citizens and communities is not for the energy poor, since they have other things to worry about. And we're looking at how these people can be unburdened instead, but this is in tension with these goals of transparency, education, and participation. So this is something to look at still. And finally, since it concerns this public infrastructure and with a lot of public investments, how can the revenue that is generated also be distributed in a kind of according to public values maybe, or public principles, rather than just a free market?